This is Pokemon Stadium. This is the very first Nintendo 64 release of a Pokemon game, I think. Pokemon Snap might have been a little bit earlier. But as you know, Pokemon is kind of a big deal. It's one of the biggest video game series out there now, but you know, when we were children, it wasn't a thing. It was just a concept in a guy's head. He was his name is Satoshi Tajiri. He basically loved collecting bugs as a kid. And when he started making video games, he wanted to make a game that encompassed that feeling he had collecting bugs in a time in Japan that didn't really exist anymore because of urbanization. And it became its own thing. He came up with 151 different monsters. You're seeing some of them on screen right now. It originally was a Game Boy game, which had various versions, and it's kind of become its own thing. I think there are over 800 Pokemon now. This was the very first console release. The handheld game is a role-playing game. They've always pretty much been role-playing games, although there have been some spin-offs. Yeah, maybe so, because Pokemon has played such a big role in our generation, and their experiences growing up certainly shaped my experience. When I was in 5th grade, I got into the Pokemon TV show, the very first season. In hindsight, maybe not the best writing, but at the time, as a 10-year-old, it was very exciting. These 10-year-old kids, going out and just having their own adventure, and there's a kind of a sport aspect to it, where everyone's trying to compete to be the best that they can be. The Game Boy games were huge. They really were the key games on the Game Boy, the original Game Boy, and really have been the cornerstone of the Nintendo handheld ever since the 90s. The thing is, in terms of what it looked like, though, and maybe I should go and show you what it looks like on handheld just momentarily, so you see why this game was kind of a big deal when it came out on console. So actually, I think what I'm going to do... yeah. Well, the Pokemon series has definitely become a lot more than just video games. There's an anime. It's been a running anime for the last 20 plus years. That card game. In 5th grade, everyone was really into those Pokemon cards. I was too. I got my parents out, my aunt and uncle, we'd go get these booster packs. Some of those cards are worth a ton of money now. I have one of those first generation Charizard hologram cards with the shine and whatnot. And if it were graded through one of the professionals, probably a few $100s. Just that card, one card alone, few $100s, probably like $300-400. Maybe more graded, depending on the condition. Cards, they've always had cards. They still have cards. Alright, let me see if I can load it up, just so you can kind of get a... What I have right now is I have this on an original N64 with an N64 controller. You can plug in what's called a transfer pack. It came with Pokemon Stadium. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, because it's so long ago now. But what I'm going to see if I can load up is, let me actually get my team in. Just to give you a sense of the graphics from the time. To see why this particular game was a big deal in terms of the graphics. I'm just going into my boxes because I put my Pokemon all from the game, my original Game Boy game, onto back onto my game. So there was a possibility for you to play your Game Boy game on a TV, which was a huge deal. Those Game Boys didn't have backlighting at the time. And Game Boys weren't very big. You have this tiny screen. If you wanted to play, you can load it up like this. You'd actually have to actually use backlighting. Have a lamp, at night if you wanted to play. So this was the original. Yes, you were able to move it onto the N64 game and actually control it. You could actually change the speed on it too. But I just want to show you a little bit of what the graphics look like in the game. So this is the Pokemon Center. It's a place where you can heal your Pokemon. Let me see if I can... I don't think I have any... Wait, did I have... I have a Surf. So, there are 15 types of Pokemon. And what you would need to do is... you could surf around. The graphics weren't that amazing at the time, as you could see. But in the Game Boy Color release version, you can actually... But you were able to play it on the TV. This was a big deal at the time. So you could fight. Basically with these Pokemon, you were able to use them to fight other trainers. You'd level them up and ultimately beat basically bosses, gym leaders. There were 8 gym leaders you had to go across. And there were specific typings, as you can see. So water type moves basically would be strong against fire, for example. Weak against grass types. There was a balancing act of types in the game. There were some recovery moves too, like this one. But mainly what I want to show you right now is just what it looked like graphically. So, these were pretty basic graphics. Certainly consistent with a Game Boy. I'm currently on Cinnabar Island. It is a volcanic island where there was one of the 8 gyms in the game. Basically, you'd play through. You could fly around, get your gym badges, and once you get 8 gyms, 8 gym badges, you can fight the Elite Four, which was kind of the final bosses, and then you basically fight for the championship in it. But mainly, I just wanted to show you what graphically this looked like. Okay. Just so you know why this was kind of a big deal. Now onto the actual game itself. Again, on the Nintendo 64. As I start, basically, they wanted to make it like, essentially, I think, like sporting leagues. So you had various levels of competition. You had your level 15 to 20 Pokemon only. So kind of your baby type Pokemon for fights. You've got your Petite Cup, level 25 to 30. You've got your level 50 to 55, which was kind of like a standard cup back then. Modern Pokemon is actually also level 50. Everything gets capped at level 50 these days. And then Prime Cup, which is just whatever you want. And I'll end up showing you that, and I think I'll actually do it in level 2 if I remember how to do it. I remember how I do it. So this was kind of the culmination of tournaments that would be local. Before this, people just connect with a link cable, connect their Game Boys to each other, and play, at the local mall or whatnot. trying to remember if I can set this as round. Maybe I'll just do it as level 1. Okay, so various difficulties you can kind of play up. There are 15 types of Pokemon. They each have their strengths and weaknesses against each other. Now there are 18 types, but at the time there were 15. So, for example, fire would be good against grass. Water would be good against fire. Electric would be good against water. Some things kind of make sense, right? And then there'd be other ones where you can, for example, flying types would be good against bug types. Kind of emulates a little bit of the real world, although they kind of took some liberties with some things. So to kind of show you some of what the Pokemon were at the time. I'm going to go to rentals to show you kind of what they are. So each Pokemon, basically, a lot of them have evolutions. Once they get to a certain level, they can evolve into a better Pokemon. So, for example, Bulbasaur is one of the starters in the game you'd pick. And some pretty basic moves initially. But then as it gets higher level to level 16, it becomes more evolved, it has higher stats, has some better moves. So Bulbasaur, you just have Leech Seed as a move, which is one move that kind of sucks away health. Ivysaur still has Leech Seed, which is a pretty good move, but it also has now Mega Drain. It can actually drain health on a specific turn, not just kind of chip damage with Leech Seed. And then evolves into Venusaur. Solar Beam, Sleep Powder. You can put the other monster to sleep. You can use a move that is one of the most powerful in the game, Solar Beam. And the same thing, I'm just going to show some of the more popular ones that you probably have seen. Charmander is particularly popular. Becomes Charmeleon, becomes Charizard after that. There's Squirtle, becomes Wartortle, and then becomes Blastoise. Of course, you guys everyone knows who Pikachu is. Pikachu is one of the starter Pokemon in Pokemon Yellow, which was a remake, which was kind of based on the anime of the original Pokemon Blue and Red games. But as you can see, quite a few different types, you know? There's psychic types. This is a psychic type. Squirtle is quite exciting. Squirtle is actually what I use for part of speedruns in the original Pokemon Blue, Pokemon Red games, and maybe at some point I will run one. It's just I haven't run through it in a while, and it's a pretty long run. There's some fighting types. So, for example, Machamp. Look at all those. Look at the muscles on Machamp, and all those arms. I mean, fighting type. Fighting types are weak against psychic types. They're good against normal types. So, let me see examples. You have some ducks. You have water types like that. You have bugs. You have bugs like Parasect. You have some ground types like Nidoking. Nidoking is actually pretty good speedrun Pokemon. Poison types. These types can do a lot of damage to grass types. You've got your birds. You always have your birds like Pidgeot. I'm going to try to show you some of the other types too. Rock and ground type, just pure rock. Quite sturdy of a Pokemon. You have electric types. This one actually is also a steel type in later games, because they're magnets. There aren't that many ghost types in the game, but these are some ghost types. Ghastly evolves into Haunter and a Gengar. The thing about these games, and really every Pokemon game, is they always have two versions. So this In the original, there was a blue and a red. And if you wanted to catch them all, you had to have access to the other copy of the game. So one game might have the ability for you to get 135 of the 151. The other would give you the other 135 and 151, roughly. I think there were a few more than that. And you'd have to trade to get the other ones. So what ended up happening quite a bit was one person would get one version, their friend would get another version, and then they would trade each other to make so that they could catch them all, which is kind of the motto in the games. Trying to see what types I haven't shown before. This is another psychic type, Mr. Mime. That's in the Detective Pikachu movie. The Eevees are particularly popular. This is basically a fox that evolves into many, many different types, depending on specific circumstances. So it'll evolve into a water type like Vaporeon, Jolteon, an electric type, Flareon, a fire type, and then you have some really powerful Pokemon, which can be considered pseudo-legendary, like Snorlax. There's only 2 of them you can potentially get in a game. Then there are legendaries that there's only 1 of in any game. If you don't catch it, well, you're kind of screwed. You had to catch it. Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres were kind of the 3 in the original games. Oh, and there were some dragon types as well. These were the dragons in the original games. There are a lot more of these now. I'm going to pull out my transfer pack right now and probably do a reset, just so that it doesn't mess with any of the gameplay and if it screws up in any way. And I'll kind of take you through kind of a run of Master Cup with some of the Pokemon I built up, and I'll kind of explain some strategy as well as to why I'm doing why I'm using that particular team. I built up a pretty good team in the original game. So I'm going to show you a Prime Cup run. I'll do it all the way Master Ball. That's the highest difficulty. I have a red shirt Pokemon. So this is generally, these are my 2 teams. They're generally built up. You'll notice there's one slight difference. There's a Mewtwo in the first set. Mewtwo is the most powerful Pokemon in the game, so I'll probably not use Mewtwo. He was kind of the subject of the very first Pokemon movie, kind of the villain that you kind of had to control. Mewtwo was basically created by scientists to be the most powerful Pokemon ever. It escaped from a lab, and then it kind of wreaks havoc until Ash Ketchum, the main character, basically kind of gets him under control over the course of the movie. I'm gonna take him out. Instead, I'm just gonna use the other team: Executor, Chansey, Snorlax, Tauros, Rhydon, and Starmie. Executor is a grass and psychic type, and psychic types were pretty powerful back in the original games. And I see that my stream still says Mario Kart 64. I should probably fix that, because it most definitely is not. So Executor is a grass and psychic type. Chansey is what is now a fairy type, but back in the time it was a normal type. Executor is kind of a Pokemon that can do status. Basically, create status effects on the other Pokemon. Chansey is pretty bulky. It's pretty defensive, and it's kind of a healer. Snorlax is quite bulky, very big Pokemon. Tauros is a very offensive Pokemon in this game. Snorlax actually becomes the most powerful Pokemon in the next generation of games, Gold, Silver, Crystal. it had to be nerfed a little bit. All of these Pokemon ended up having to be nerfed because they were pretty strong in this generation. And when I mean generation, I mean that every few years there's a new Pokemon world that gets created. And they're all based on a particular region of the world itself. So the original games were in the Kanto region, which was named after the Kanto region in Japan, which is basically the Tokyo area and surrounding areas. The second generation was Johto, which is based on an area west of Tokyo. Hoenn was the next region with the Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald games. That was on the Game Boy Advance. They put that in kind of the southern island area. Sinnoh was northern Japan in the next generation. Then they stuck Unova, and Unova is basically the New York, New Jersey area. They decided to branch out and actually recreate a different part of the world. Let's see, Kalos was the next region. It's based on France. In fact, if you go around the world, you will see actual tourist attractions. So the Eiffel Tower, for example, is in the Kalos region in the actual games. They had... I'm blanking on the next name right now, but the next region was in Hawaii. Alola. That was the Alola region. Now they're currently on Galar, which is based on England. But anyway, there's Rhydon, which is a pure rock type, and Starmie, which is a water and psychic type. So that's the team I had built up. You'll see that it's a pretty decent team. They are the most fully evolved Pokemon. So what do we have in the first matchup? So basically, everyone gets to pick 3 Pokemon out of the 6. You're kind of basing it on what the other team has. So right now they've got, let's see what they've got. They've got Pinsir, Beedrill, both bug types. Flareon and Magmar are both fire types. Raticate and Kangaskhan are both normal types. So I'm going to want a water type because water types are good against fire. So Starmie will be one of my choices. 2 others. Snorlax is usually a pretty safe bet. So I'll go with Snorlax. Given that there are no rock types on the other side. And then I will show you... Let me show you Rhydon as well, because they have 2 normal types. And normal types can't do a lot of damage against rocks. Now, you saw a battle before on the Game Boy. Now look at the graphics on the N64 compared to what you saw when I was using the Starmie. The Game Boy version. So, basically, each Pokemon has 4 moves. And you can only have 4 moves. You can only keep 4 moves on a Pokemon. If you have more than 4, you've got to replace another. So the strategy is, which 4 do you choose? Now, in this game, you can see for Starmie, I have 4 types for moves. Recover is recovering health. Blizzard is a very powerful ice move, which sometimes misses. So it's one of those moves that can be hit or miss sometimes. Thunderbolt is not the most powerful electric move, but it's a lot more reliable than Thunder. Thunder Wave is a paralysis move, so I'm going to show you what Thunder Wave looks like. It's a pretty good move to start out with. Raticate uses Quick Attack, which is a priority move. It attacks early. So when it's paralyzed, it's not always going to be able to attack because it's stuck. Starmie is actually a water type, but you can see it's pretty powerful even using an electric move. A critical hit is basically a move that is a little advantaged by luck. I just got lucky on that. Looks like I did take a lot of damage. I'm going to go and recover. Quick attack is a priority, but it doesn't do as much damage, so I should be okay. So it restores about half, which is good. I'm going to go ahead and finish off Raticate here. Raticate is the evolved form of Rattata. It's your common rat, basically. Starmie, I think, is supposed to be the evolved starfish. Let's see what the computer chooses in this battle. It's going to be Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan's pretty strong. It is based on a kangaroo. Has a pouch. I'm going to start with Thunder Wave. Yeah, I suppose that's true. So, Thunder Wave is actually overpowered in the original game. You can't use Thunder Wave in this... Oh, I'm confused. Well, the Starmie's confused, which means it can attack itself, potentially, which is not a good thing. But I'm going to see if I can recover. I'm at half health. Earthquake's the best ground move in the game. It's going to do a lot of damage. But Starmie's pretty strong. So now that's paralyzed, I can just keep using Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt's probably a little bit more reliable of a move in the original games. And that's because, I mean, it has 90% accuracy. Whereas Blizzard, oh, that did a lot of damage. Critical hit. Critical hit happens every, I'm not sure exactly what the percentage chance is. It might be 15%, maybe? I'm not totally sure. But when there's a critical hit, it does double damage. Busy Punch is a pretty good fighting move. Wow, this Kangaskhan's actually doing pretty decent damage. You know what? I'll heal, but I'll probably switch out and show you Rhydon. I know, seriously, that Kangaskhan's pretty strong. So you can always switch out, but it's going to waste a turn when you switch out, because you can't actually use a move when you switch out. I'm going to switch to Rhydon, because Rhydon, as a rock type, is going to take less damage from Kangaskhan, which is a normal type. So at heart, this is a little bit of a strategy game after you build up kind of the team you want. Critical hit, but did like no damage. So I'm going to use Earthquake for the first move. Earthquake, like I said, is the strongest ground move in the game. Pretty strong, huh? So Rock Slide is a pretty good rock move in the game. It's certainly one of the best. Horn Drill is kind of more of a hit and miss. Normal move, but a pretty strong one. Substitute is kind of an interesting move because it basically puts out a dummy to get hit. And that basically it will take the damage at the cost of about 1/4 health on your Pokemon. It's not usually that effective against a lot of things, but if the other person is trying to use status moves like trying to poison you, whatnot, well, poisoning the substitute is not going to do anything. So it buys you an extra turn when that happens. But for now, I'll show you Rock Slide, since it doesn't really matter which move I choose here. Oh, it missed! Rocks, yeah, rock types tend to take a lot of damage against these normal types. A lot of the game is based on typing. That's really the starting point. You want to work advantages with your typing against the other side. And you want to avoid being on the other side of a type disadvantage. Pinsir. Pinsir is a bug type. It actually has a Mega Evolution in the later games is pretty good, actually. But here, it's probably not going to stand a big chance, because rocks will smash bugs, as you might expect. Strength is a pretty decent normal type move, but again, normal type moves aren't very good against rocks.
one is conceding an inch. What's this? That was weak. How's that? Wow, that's an effective hit.
And that is the first match.
Is it down and out? And there goes the battle.
The teams you generally want to have a balanced team because you're picking 3 out of 6. You want to have enough of variety on the team that you're able to pick 3 against the opposing 6. And you want to have ones that don't, say you don't want to have, 4 of the same type on your team. Otherwise, you would run into some trouble with the other team. Okay, we've got Jinx, which is a Psychic and Ice type, and frankly, that Pokemon's a little racist because of what it looks like. They've had to change it over the years to not have it look like that. Golem, you already know, is a rock type, rock and ground. Golbat is an evolved bat Pokemon, which is a poison type. It actually has a new evolution after this game called Crobat. Aerodactyl is kind of an interesting one because it's a fossil Pokemon. Basically, in all these games, Jinx, probably last game where Jinx is in purple. I think the next generation Jinx was still black-faced, but I think it was changed to purple after that. Aerodactyl is a prehistoric dinosaur, basically. In every game you get fossils. This is one of the ones where you can get in each game, but basically with the fossils, you bring it to a lab. They will resurrect the prehistoric Pokemon so that you can have it on your team. It's kind of a neat process, and it's in every game. Persian is the evolved form of Meowth, which is a well-known villain character in the anime. It is a cat. And Victory Bell is one of those plants that eat animals, basically. One of those fly traps. Okay, see what this team is. It seems pretty balanced, so I may just try to put some balance on this team. I'll put some different Pokemon that you haven't seen. I'm going to start Executor, so they can kind of see what that looks like. I'll put on Snorlax, and I'll add Chansey. Chansey and Snorlax are both normal types. They're just kind of your generic typing. Executor is kind of unique because it is something Pokemon that can use status, which is nice to have on the team. So what I have here is Sleep Powder, Stun Spore. They're both, one puts the Pokemon to sleep, about a 75% chance. Stun Spore is a little more accurate, but stunning, it's still away. So it can come back and attack you, but it would be paralyzed with a Stun Spore. Psychic is the most powerful Psychic move in this game. There was no Side Strike at the time. An Explosion is a self-imploding move, or self-exploding move, I guess. It will take you out at the expense of doing immense damage to the other Pokemon. That can be useful when your Pokemon is pretty low in health. You can see that that there is a HP, a health power bar, and that's how much health you've got. When you're out, you're done unless you have a recovery move of some sort, or you use items as you can in the normal game. But in competitive play, which this basically would be, you don't get to use items to heal like you would in the regular role-playing game. Okay, so I'm going to start by using Sleep Powder, because obviously it's a pretty good way to start. That kind of did a lot of damage because it was a critical hit by Persian. Kind of funny because Pokemon who fall asleep are still kind of moving around in this game.
Combatants face each other.
Maybe not this version as much.
It's fast asleep.
Usually sleep has an effect for 2 to 5 turns, which can be quite helpful.
Major death.
So in the later games I use Venusaur.
Flying in this
I use Venusaur and it does some pretty good damage after doing the sleep powder move. So I'm going to keep using Psychic. It is a Psychic type. When you use moves of your same typing, you tend to do a little bit more damage.
A psychic
Even the same move.
That's a good hit.
So pretty quick turnaround on Persian.
Down and out.
Probably didn't even need to put it to sleep, but
Which
works just
Pokemon
fine
is
that I
coming
did.
up?
So Jinx. Psychic type. Psychic.
The remaining
This is
Pokemon
kind of an interesting matchup actually because
This
Ice versus Grass is kind of a wash. And then Psychic versus Psychic means Psychic types don't do much damage to each other. Jinx also has a Kiss move, which actually can put Executor to sleep as well.
staring each other
So
down.
we'll see how this goes. Jinx does generally go first. Jinx isn't going to use a sleep move, I guess. It's just going to, paralyze.
What's this? It fell asleep again.
So you can always switch out.
Attack.
Right now, as you can see, I have really just Psychic and Explosion moves, which Explosion would do kind of decent damage, but I'm probably still too high on health to use that. Psychic is not going to be good against Psychic. It's just one of the rules in this particular game. Psychic doesn't do a lot of damage to Psychic. So I'm actually going to switch out and show you Snorlax,
They go into
which is one of the most powerful Pokemon in the first,
Pokemon.
in the early years of the game.
Oh, it's
I mean, look at how big it is. It is just bulky.
It's fast asleep.
It's what's called, in Pokemon, a wall. It takes a lot of damage. So showing you some of the moves. Amnesia increases special attack and defense. A very good move to start out with. Blizzard is the most powerful ice move in the game. Not always accurate. Body Slam is a pretty solid, normal move. One of the best in the game. It can also paralyze, which is a nice benefit to that. Rest is basically Snorlax goes to sleep for 2 turns, heals up all its health. Since it has a lot of HP, it will do a lot of. It's going to heal quite a bit, and even if it takes hits for 2 turns. So I'm going to start with Amnesia for my first move to set up attacks.
It woke up. It pumped up its special rating. The crowd's excitement is building over this hot
I just realized Body Slam is actually a normal move, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and still use Body Slam.
What now? A decent hit.
Actually, you know what? In the early games, I don't think there was a distinction, as much of a distinction between normal and special moves. That ended up being a split in later games. But look at how much damage Body Slam does. It's a very powerful move.
What's next?
That's not going to do much.
It's a hit. Body slam.
Those kind of Ice Punch, Dizzy Punch kind of moves are never the most powerful moves.
It's down.
So basically, when a Pokemon gets beaten, they faint. They don't die, they faint. That's part of making it more palatable, I think, for kids to understand.
The remaining Pokemon count is 3 to 1.
Victory Bell is
Has become one-sided.
a grass type. It's more of an aggressive Pokemon,
What'll it do?
less defensive, more offensive. But Snorlax is a wall. It can just take damage like no one. I mean, look at Body Slam. It actually did paralyze this time. There is,
Neither one.
I think it's a pretty high chance, actually. I think it's about maybe 25% chance of getting a paralyze.
How's that? Severe hit.
So, as you can see, Snorlax was very good. it was basically a necessity on teams back in the late 90s. You needed a Snorlax on your team because it was just, it could take hits like nobody's business. I'll show you Blizzard just because I'm pretty much going to win at this point and see if it lands. Just to show you it. I guess I could have actually used that move earlier, but that's how it looks like. So it's kind of an interesting setup in Pokemon because you're playing through normal games. It's a role-playing game. You're trying to gain levels, build up your team, so that you can beat ever-increasing levels of opposing players. So basically, they're called Pokemon trainers. And beat gym leaders to get those badges. So you're leveling up higher and higher. But after a certain point, it becomes a strategy game, and this is the strategy game part of it. Let's see what we got here. Opponents: Machamp, fighting type, Primate, fighting type. Then you've got Jolteon, which is an electric type, Nidoking, a poison and ground type. Hitmonlee is a fighting type. Yes, the Lee is based on Bruce Lee. There's and Hitmonlee is kind of a kicking champion kind of Pokemon. There is also a boxing type, and that's Machamp. Or actually, no, is Hitmonchan actually, based on Jackie Chan. And Scyther is a bug type. So we're looking at some pretty good, potentially two fighting types, which normal types are weak against. Rhydon's probably going to be pretty good here because you're against the bug type in Scyther, and also Jolteon, an electric type. Rock types are good, and ground types are good. Well, really, especially ground types against electric. I'm going to put Rhydon in as one. Then I get to pick two more. I'll put in Chansey just because you haven't seen Chansey. And Tauros. I'll put in Tauros. I realize that's two weak ones against fighting, but I'll be okay with this team. These graphics were incredible for the late 90s, especially when you're playing on a Game Boy with the graphics I showed you. This was just very exciting for everyone at the time. Being able to play a Game Boy game on a TV, being able to watch Pokemon fight like this. There are no new Pokemon games that are like this anymore because the graphics are just so much better now. One hit KO on this is a bug type. Rocks kind of crush bugs. Scyther is actually a pretty decent Pokemon too. It's one of the ones you get in a Safari Zone in the game, which is kind of like a wildlife reserve where you can catch whatever you you basically pay your way in and you catch whatever you want in the time you're in there. Okay, so Machamp is a fighting type, as I mentioned. It's one of the better fighting types. It's going to use Focus Energy, which kind of pumps it up. Earthquake is one of the better moves in the game. It seems to take off about half health, which is good. I think it's going to use an actual move here, so Substitute isn't actually going to do anything. I'll use another Earthquake. Oh, wow. Okay. So it used Dig. It's a 2-turn move, where it's basically going to sneak up on me next turn and attack me. Let's see. I want to switch to Executor. Rhydon, as a rock and ground type, can take a lot of damage to a move like Dig, which is a ground move, because ground types are actually strong against rock. One of the interesting things about Pokemon is there's more than Yeah, it is a little weird Earthquake when working against Dig, but that's just how the mechanics work in the game. I'm gonna go ahead and put it to sleep for now with Executor. So I basically let Executor take the hit. I switched him out. Oh wow, it actually missed. Oh wow, it has Fire Blast? Okay, that's a problem. Fire strong against grass. Wow, okay. Well, that sucks. Okay. Well, I'm gonna use Psychic. Psychic is strong against fighting. That was pretty unlucky for me because I had to my sleep power missed 30% roughly chance of missing, and then Machamp just has fire blast as a move. It's not a common move for Machamp to have. So at this point, Exactor is gonna get knocked out. So I'm gonna try Explosion if I can get the head start, and I probably won't. Oh, okay. Focus Energy. So Explosion is just gonna combust. I'm going to wipe myself out in the process. Executor is going to get wiped out. And it's going to do... And wow, it took out him only on one hit. It is a very powerful move, but yeah, you get knocked out if you do it. If you use it on Executor or whichever Pokemon that is Explosion. Okay, we've got through 3 battles. Looks like the next guy is a Gambler with quite a few interesting Pokemon here. We got Tauros. I have a Tauros on my team. Slowbro is a Psychic and Water type. It is kind of interesting because it has basically a shell Pokemon, Shelter, on its tail. So it's kind of like some kind of symbiosis situation where Shelter just kind of is part of Slowbro. Duck Trio are kind of those moles, basically, I think. 1 becomes 3 with the evolution. Blastoise is basically a very evolved turtle. Hopefully we see Blastoise in there somewhere. Arbok is a snake. And Dragonite, they have funny names where they just kind of change the order of the letters. Dragonite is the only dragon final evolution in this game. It is a dragon and flying type. So looking at it, it's kind of a situation where I don't know that there's a benefit specifically to focusing on any particular type. There is good variety on the other team. I'm going to go with Tauros, just so you can see Tauros, because you haven't been able to see Tauros. I'm going to put in Chansey, and then I will put in... You know, I might just put in Snorlax and put in all 3 normal types. There's no fighting types on the other team. Tauros, this is pretty much the... Oh, wow, Tauros versus Shiny Tauros, I believe. Okay. Shiny, okay, so Shiny Pokemon are kind of interesting. They are basically the albino versions of the Pokemon. They're very rare. If you're able to catch one in a game, it's very, very exciting because they have a different shading. They're not always lighter color. They can be whatever color, but they are a different color. And they're very rare. I think they're something like 1 of 8,000 encounters in the old games. They've become a little more common recently, but still pretty hard to get a version that is different color like that. Tauros, okay. Tauros has Hyper Beam, which is probably the strongest normal move in the game, but it is a 2-turn move, so you take up 1 turn when you do it. Thunderbolt, you've seen Earthquake, you've seen Blizzard, you've seen, they're all pretty solid moves, and that's why I put all of them on Tauros. I'm going to start right now probably with Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt is the best, probably the best and most versatile move in this game. But Tauros is pretty strong. Tauros, of course, is going to be pretty strong against other Tauros. I mean, this could be an interesting fight, actually. I'll give Earthquake a chance too. It's been a while since I've used particular moves on these Pokemon. I built up this team in 2014 when I kind of started playing video games again after law school. I'm going to go and actually just stick Thunderbolt on this. Thunderbolt's just always been one of the best moves. It's a reliable move for you to put on any Pokemon, really. Even on the newer games. Oh, this actually could be real interesting. So, switched out to Dragonite. Dragonite, flying types are usually weak against electric, but Dragon is strong against electric, so it kind of evened out. Earthquake is not going to work because it's a flying type. Blizzard, now that gets interesting because ice moves are very effective against Dragon types, so if I can land it with the percentage chance that it can miss, this could do a lot of damage because it's a Dragon flying type. Oh, one hit. Ice is good against flying, ice is against Dragon, ice is particularly effective against Dragonite. So you may wonder, okay, there are 151 Pokemon. How do I remember all of this? How do I remember what types are good against which types? There are 15 types. How do I remember which Pokemon's what? The thing is, after you've played for a while, you just remember these things, and really anyone who's played a decent amount of Pokemon will remember these things. It has its own logic. Okay, Slowbro is a water and a psychic type. Electric is good against water. Oh, and the other thing about the newer Pokemon games is it literally tells you if a move is good against another Pokemon if you've seen it before. There are I think there are something like 900 Pokemon now, so you're not going to remember all of them. Oh, Thunder Wave is a good move. So, paralyzing Tauros is a pretty smart move by Slowbro. Because Thunder Wave was basically 100% effective back then, and paralyzing and paralysis was pretty strong in the original games. So you may notice water types don't really do very well against my teams because I have Thunderbolt on a lot of Pokemon on this squad. And that's the remaining Tauros. My Tauros might just sweep the entire team and take them all out. Oh, the thing of paralysis means you go slower. Okay, Horn Drill is an interesting move because it has something like a 20 to 30% chance of landing, but it's a one-hit KO. Yeah, combinations can really mess people up, especially in the newer games. There weren't as many combinations in the original game. They were still kind of tweaking it at that point. But the games get more complicated over time with more techniques. I mean, you look at, wow, okay. That was a pretty good move. Tauros was paralyzed, so it was particularly vulnerable. Okay, I'm going to show you Chansey here. Chansey is basically the ultimate wall Pokemon. It doesn't do much damage, but it is very hard to take down. It still is, and even in the newer games, it's very hard to take down. I'm actually going to start Thunder Wave, even though you would think 66 health. Oh, wow, Fissure is also a one-hit KO move. Wow, okay. Well, the AI is getting perfect luck right now, which happens sometimes.
We're down to one Pokemon aside. Oh, it's Snorlax.
The AI has now landed two almost impossible moves.
The battle is coming right down to the wire.
So, yeah, a little unlucky with some of these. Generally, these kind of 20%, 30% one-hit KO moves are not very good actually put on a team because they're pretty unreliable for obvious reasons. The original Pokemon probably is the best Pokemon game for, well, the best Pokemon game to start out with if you ever try one, and you want just kind of an easier game. The best one probably to pick up at this point is Pokemon Let's Go Eevee or Let's Go Pikachu. They are kind of easier versions of the original game, and they're on the Nintendo Switch. If you ever wanted to try it, you do get either Eevee or Pikachu, and the starter you get is pretty strong. So it's kind of a good starter game if you ever want to pick it up. Okay, so we've got very much water-based team here. Starmie's water and psychic, Dugong's water and ice, Omastar's water and rock, Poliwrath water and fighting, Venusaur, Venusaur is a grass and poison, and then Executor is a grass and psychic. So, as you know, all my Pokemon pretty much have electric moves, so I think I'm pretty good on this. In terms of the water types. Water types are probably not going to do very well against Starmie, which is also a water type. Water doesn't do a lot of damage against water. There is a battle chart people use for this stuff, especially in the older games. Kind of start to understand which type is good against which. I'm going to put in Starmie. And then for the others, we've got 2 grass types. Oh yeah, I was going to actually show you Chansey. I didn't get a chance to show you Chansey, so I'll put in Chansey. And then I will put in... So rock types are not very good against water or grass, so I'm not going to put in Rhydon. I'm going to go ahead and put in... Yeah, I think I'll put in Executor. Grass types tend to be good against water types. Water versus water to begin. Also, fighting types. So you may be wondering why do I have no water or psychic moves on Starmie? That's how strong Thunder, like electric moves were back in the day. You could just Starmie could run an electric moveset and do quite well. Hydro Pump wasn't all. Hydro Pump and Surf weren't the best moves. Blizzard was actually a better move. And well, I'm going to use Blizzard against Executor because of the ice versus grass advantage. Did pretty good damage. Looks like it took it almost all the way. Toxic is actually an interesting move because it's poison. Toxic is actually a pretty good strategy sometimes with Pokemon especially in later games. I'm just going to use Thunderbolt on this turn just because it's more reliable than Blizzard. Should knock out Executor. Oh, guess not. So there are teams that people can run based on status. So, for example, you can keep with basically more defensive teams. You can end up just burning them, you can poison them, and just gradually whittle down damage rather than do pure damage attacks. Generally, teams, there are offensive-minded teams that can be, they can do a lot of damage really quickly. You want to wipe out the team as quickly, the other team as quickly as possible. You've got teams that are purely defensive that are just going to wear you down. And then there are some balanced teams, which is what I often try to achieve. This is somewhat of a balanced team. It can do some status, it can defend, and it can also do a good amount of damage, at least certain ones. That was a lot more powerful than I thought it would be. Venusaur landed pretty good attack. But Venusaur is damaged. So I'll show you Chansey right now, since the two are probably about the same right now. Hopefully I can actually show you some of the moves. Chansey has Ice Beam. Ice Beam is a less powerful but more reliable move compared to Blizzard. Thunderbolt is the, again, Thunderbolt and Thunder Wave. Soft Boiled is a healing move, and it can heal quite a bit considering, look at that health on Chansey. This is why I have Chansey on the team. 660 health. It has twice the health as a Venusaur. So it can stick around for quite a while in a fight, as long as it's not going in this game going up against a fighting type. So I mean, Chansey doesn't do quite as much damage. Even on super effective, that only took off half. But it's it's a pure defense Pokemon. And its final form in the later games, Blissey, is kind of similar, although Blissey is a little more attack oriented. A lot of people run Chansey instead of Blissey anyway on those competitive teams because Chansey is so bulky that if you start switching to Blissey, well, that kind of takes away some of the advantage Chansey has, which is that it's just bulky. It can defend for a long time. Leech Seed is a move that basically leeches away health over time. A little bit here and there over time. It's a pretty good move. I put it on my Venusaur in the 6th generation games. Because sometimes you want a move that can solidly heal and also solidly do chip damage. Okay, Polywrath it is. Ice is not good against water, but electric is, so I'm going to go ahead and start using Thunderbolt. I guess I could have used Thunder Wave, actually. That probably would have been a better move here. Thunder Wave was just overpowered back in the old days. It was too effective. Well, if I'm going to do that kind of damage, I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and just finish off Polywrath with Thunderbolt. Actually, I'm going to Thunder Wave first because... Okay, I'm going to use Thunder Wave first, actually, because the Poison and Leech Seed combined is doing a bit of damage. Submission's pretty solid, too. Okay, I may have misplayed that part. It is a fighting type. It does good damage against normal. So I did misplay the last turn. I'm going to put on Sleep Powder. Try to slow down Polywrath a bit here. Oh, Hypnosis is the psychic equivalent, but it's only 60% chance. It has a lower, or it might be 50 even. It's 50 or 60% chance of doing sleep damage. Executor's Sleep Powder is a little better, and I guess it succeeded. So right now, I am actually kind of stuck on moves. I'm going to have to use Psychic, but Psychic should do pretty well. It is a fighting type Pokemon. Psychic is effective against fighting. Psychic was a little too powerful in the original games. They kind of balanced it out. But Psychic has advantages over multiple types in the original games. And the Executor is a Psychic type. In the next generation, they introduced a Dark type, which I know is favored by at least one person listening. Dark types are pretty fun to play as. Dark types always tend to do quick work of Psychic types who can't do any damage against Dark. They're also pretty good against Ghost types, which I know you haven't really seen too much of here. Oh, this could be interesting. So, Legendary Birds. They have Articuno, Moltres, and Zapdos, and Charizard, which is it's actually not even a dragon type, even though it's basically a dragon. It's fire and flying. Pidgeot is flying. Fearow is flying. So we're looking at a full team of flying types. So Electric's going to be good. Rhydon is going to be pretty good as a rock type. We're going to open with Rhydon here. There are 2 Firebirds in here with Moltres and Charizard. I will go with Tauros as the second one. And Snorlax just because Snorlax is so bulky. Birds don't tend to be as bulky. They're not going to have as much health as Snorlax. Even legendary birds. So Articuno is one of the legendary birds. It's pretty neat. Although ice is kind of a good spot for them right now. Ice can be pretty good against rock type, so I'm going to have to do a switch. I'm going to switch to Snorlax because Snorlax is bulkier. You can take more damage on a switch. Switches usually cost a turn. In the later games, they do come out with a few moves like Volt Tackle, U-Turn, that are switch moves, so you can actually do some damage on your switch, but it'll take up a turn when you do that. So I've got Snorlax in. I can use Body Slam with Snorlax. Articash. Huh. Okay, this is going to be actually kind of challenging because this Articuno is pretty strong. So at this point, I'm going to need to use Rest as a move. Snorlax is probably going to run out. Snorlax could even get knocked out at this point. Looks like it did get knocked out. Okay, I'm going to do a switch at this point because I got one knocked out. I'll use Tauros. Tauros is more offensively oriented. This Rhydon wasn't a good matchup for Articuno. It didn't work out as I planned. So the fun thing about this game also is the commentary. You can actually hear some commentary from the game itself, which was another neat thing about the game. Oh wow! Yeah, I might actually lose this because ice when Pokemon's frozen, they're kind of just stuck in this game, and they're not going to unfreeze. Yeah, I might actually lose this fight. That's unfortunate.
There's a distinct difference in the number of remaining Pokemon. We're down to the last Pokemon. There's only one Pokemon against 3. The battle has become one-sided.
Ooh, this is actually going to be a problem. I'll probably going to lose this one because, this Articuno just ended up being a really good match. Well, okay, I will say I did not expect that, but I guess I lose. That's where having Mewtwo is generally pretty helpful sometimes. Having the best Pokemon. The thing is, you can actually continue even if you lose. So I'm going to go ahead and continue here. You get continues for winning enough matches. Then you can just kind of start over. I will go ahead and do that. Just for the sake of continuing. Because that's battle 6 of 8. Okay, I'm going to need something that stops Articuno. I'm going to put in Starmie, since Starmie takes no damage from ice types. Really. And then I'll still put in Rhydon and Snorlax. That was sometimes with these matchups, you pick the wrong... you pick 3 the best you can, and they pick something else. So modern Pokemon matches do involve you picking 3 out of 6. So you put out 6, and then you adapt based on whichever 3 you think they'll probably pick. This match is going to go a lot different because what I'm going to do here is, I mean, this is just a normal and flying type. I can just Thunder Wave and Thunderbolt, and Pidgeot is not going to get out of this. Fly is a 2-turn move, so it doesn't really matter what I'm going to use on this turn because it's going to miss. It's too high up for me to hit. It's like Dig. It's the equivalent of Dig, but it's a flying type move instead of a ground type. Fly, they take 3 turns, they come down. The thing is, you can kind of adapt. Like I could have, for example, I could have switched to Rhydon there and had Rhydon take the hit, and it would have done just fine. But I mean, Starmie's doing pretty well as it is, so I just kept Starmie in. But that with these 2-turn moves, they don't tend to do very well in competitive because you have time to adapt. I mean, you can switch to another Pokemon. It's like a free switch sometimes. Okay, electric versus electric and flying type. That's kind of a wash of a move. I'm going to go ahead and switch right now because Zapdos is probably going to use an electric move as an electric type. That's going to be super effective against Starmie. So I'm going to switch out to Rhydon, which is a rock type. Electric types do no damage whatsoever to rock and ground types. Well, specifically ground type, the ground type aspect of it. So if Zapdos uses that, an electric move, this is going to completely miss right here. So at this point, I can start using Rock Slide on it. It is a bird. Rocks. Oh, switching again. Perfectly legitimate strategy. And switching to Articuno again. Uh-oh. But I landed a hit first, which is going to do it. 1-hit KO of Articuno because it was the wrong switch for the opponent. We've got Rhydon back against Zapdos. Still a pretty good matchup.
The Pokemon are entirely different types. What's this?
So the legendary birds look pretty interesting, and I guess in this matchup we've got Zapdos as one of them. We've got Articuno as another. Zapdos is out. Rhydon's not. I mean, Rhydon's just pretty good. There's actually an evolution of it in later games called Rhyperior, and it's even bulkier, so to speak. But it seems like Rhydon's just going to sweep the entire other team now because the only weakness it really had was Articuno, and it just got unlucky in the last match against Articuno. And it got lucky in this one. Gonna fly again. Doesn't matter which move I use, I might as well just... I'll show you Substitute. So that you can see it hit my Substitute. It's gonna hit the Substitute instead. And take action... Oh, it didn't even miss the... Wow, it missed completely. Actually, you know what? Substitute actually would be a pretty good move against... moves like Dig and Fly, because the most damage you can take is basically the damage you do you would lose anyway through the Substitute. That's actually a pretty good use of Substitute. That is Battle 6. Two more to go. This is Prime Cup Master Cup, or Master Ball. I am using a custom team from Pokemon Blue. Let's see, we've got Alakazam, Psychic type. Ditto is a transformative type, which would be normal, but it transforms into whichever Pokemon it sees. Gengar, a Ghost type. Raichu, an Electric type. Lapras, a Water and Psychic. Rapidash is a Fire type, so there's some good variety in there. Gengar would actually be interesting because we haven't actually seen a Gengar or an Alakazam so far in all of it. Well, I guess we haven't seen any of these, but typing-wise, Gengar would be the most unique here. I'm going to put in... Actually, Lapras is pretty solid, too. I don't have Lapras on my particular team, but Lapras is pretty bulky. Does some good water damage. Actually, like with most Pokemon that are good in the meta in this game, the Electric also works pretty well for it. I am going to put on... I'll put an Executor as one of them because of Gengar and Lapras. Would be a problem with Rapidash, but it would also do pretty well against Raichu. Ghost type actually makes it interesting because normal types do no damage to ghost types. But I don't just have normal moves on my normal types. I'm going to go ahead and put in Tauros. And I am going to also put in Snorlax.
This is it, the semi-final. No one wants to lose having come this far.
That is not the best matchup there. I'm going to do a switch to Snorlax. Grass is not going to do very well against Rapidash. Rapidash is likely going to use some kind of could be a Fire Blast type move. Fire Spin. Fire Spin is kind of a wrap kind of move. It does damage every turn. It just kind of gets stuck. So I'm probably not going to do any damage for a while. The old game, it just kept doing it. The attack just keeps continuing for a few turns. In newer games, newer Pokemon games, that changes. Where you can actually still do moves. It just keeps going, and you can do actual moves.
The attack is still continuing. A minor hit. What a furious battle.
Well, this is going to take a few turns.
The attack still going on.
These moves are never particularly amazing in these old games.
Fireworks are flying in this battle.
They're never particularly strong, but they're kind of annoying. They just keep going and going and going. They generally go 5 turns.
It's a light hit. Sparks are flying in this heated match.
Alright, at some point I will hopefully be able to use Amnesia as a move. That's the plan. Well, you know what? I think I'm... Okay, it missed.
It pumped up its special rating.
Probably should have used another move.
Neither
I think this Rapidash is just going to keep using Fire Spin.
What's next? Here's a light shot.
Not a lot of damage, just kind of time consuming.
Can't make a move. The heated
So when it's stuck in a Fire Spin, it can't make a move.
The attack's still going on.
For obvious reasons, it's stuck in this. Wrap is a poison move. Actually, it's a normal move. That does basically the same thing. And also doesn't do a ton of damage. There are a few moves like that in Pokemon.
What'll it do? A minor hit. Oh, it still can't move. The crowd's excitement is building over this hot battle.
I mean, the nice thing about something like Fire Spin is that it's not really taking up PP. So basically, you will see that with my moves, there are only so many that you can do. So you can only do it 20 times. Like Amnesia, you can only do 20 times. Blizzard, only 5. Body Slam, only 15. Rest, only 10 times during a battle. That's not too bad. I mean, Blizzard 5 times is, not bad for these shorter battles. 5 can be limiting when a fight goes for a long time. The real thing is in an RPG, when you lose the ability to, when you're using up all those moves, you're going to run out eventually, and you're going to need to do something else. you'll have to either go to a Pokemon Center to get your health and your PP back in that, or you're gonna have to use some kind of item to regenerate that. It's basically mana in other role-playing games.
The attack's still going on. Oh,
This fire spin is lasting forever.
what a furious battle.
And I know a part of it is because Rapidash acts faster than it's a faster Pokemon than Snorlax, so it's just kind of Snorlax is just kind of absorbing damage over and over and over again. But Rapidash doesn't have a real serious chance of knocking out Snorlax if I can get like a rest move in.
Oh, it still can't move. The heated battle rages on.
Trying to decide if I should switch just because it's taking so long.
The attack's still going on.
Because Rapidash, if I hit Rapidash basically 2 more times, that's it for Rapidash.
The attack is still continuing.
Basically, I guess if I were trying to speed run this,
Fireworks are flying in this battle.
I would need something to deal with the fire spin.
What now? A light hit. It still can't attack. Sparks are flying in this.
So defensive teams will use some variation of something like this, where they're just wearing you down very, very gradually and slowly, kind of like this,
Neither one is conceding.
where they can't really do a lot of damage, but they will just keep chipping away like this.
What'll it do? There's a little damage.
Okay, I'm getting a little tired with this. Let me see. I don't know if I can switch out during a fire spin. I don't recall, but I may try.
The trainers change
I'm going to switch out and put in Tauros because this is getting ridiculous.
Oh, it's Tauros.
Tauros is much faster. Tauros might get the hit on Rapidash first,
Pokemon fight.
especially since it has Earthquake as a move. Tauros is going to move first and should wipe out Rapidash.
It's finally taken down.
Ground types are good against fire, and it did the job there.
Oh, it's Raichu. The Pokemon are entirely different types.
Okay, this gets kind of interesting too. Earthquake,
To battle Pokemon.
ground type should work pretty well against Raichu and the electric type. Because remember, ground types do significant damage to electric. Electric actually did nothing to ground. But I mean, Tauros is a normal type, so it's going to get paralyzed here.
Paralyzed. The heated battle rages on.
At this point, if I land one more Earthquake with Tauros, it's over. Tauros is paralyzed, so it's going to have a 50-50 chance of actually launching an attack. It's the right 50%, so this should finish it off.
Wow, that's an effective hit. Oh, it's down. There's a difference in the number of reserve Pokemon. Oh, it's Ditto.
Ditto is fun. So Ditto is a normal type that has only one move, Transform. It will transform into the opposing Pokemon with the same moves. I'm going to use Thunderbolt.
They're staring each other down.
I'm going to try and knock Ditto down a little bit first.
Oh, it transforms.
So Tauros is... Ditto is also a Tauros now,
What now?
which makes for interesting strategies because you have to use moves against a Pokemon that looks exactly the same. Ditto's probably going to knock out Tauros, though. Because Tauros is paralyzed, it's too slow right now. I've got Snorlax, I've got Executor. Executor is going to be the better choice probably here because it has Sleep Powder. And I know what moves Tauros has, or Ditto has, because it's become Tauros. It's going to have electric moves and whatnot. I would use Sleep Powder and probably try to finish it off with Psychic. Okay, I guess I had to use another one of those.
What's this?
So that. I mean, we've already kind of filled out everything, but we ended up getting a new form, so we were gonna put that in and then file that before. Well, we got a few days to do that. Back then there were normal stats and special stats. It's still kind of the case, but there's when you get pretty technical with the statistics in the game, and people definitely do in a game like this, they look at it. They basically try to calculate how much damage something can do in their heads, based on whether it's a normal attack or a special attack, and based on typings, and it gets pretty technical when you get into it, especially with the later generations, because it gets more complicated than this. Specific natures, are going to be a little better for Pokemon. Some are going to do their hidden abilities that kind of factor into the equation. Final battle. This took me a little longer than I thought it would, just because of explanations and kind of slowing down. Oh, this could be fun. Mew. Mew is a mystical Pokemon. Basically, generally mystical Pokemon you can't even catch in the game, but someone figured out a way to catch it in this game, in the original Pokemon games. There's also so Mew is one of the best Pokemon in the game, along with Mewtwo. Mew and Mewtwo are the two best ones. They're both psychic types. Mew can learn a bunch of moves. It can have basically anything. Electrode is an electric. Snorlax, of course, is a pretty strong normal type. Rhydon, of course, route and ground. They're both solid, and you see that on my team. Cloyster is a water and ice type. Arcanine is a fire type. So, pretty balanced team. I will put in... They don't have any fighting moves, which makes Snorlax a lot better than it would be on some other ones. Probably not going to hurt to have Executor because of Sleep Powder. And probably some one with recovery moves like Starmie. So I'm going to go with those three.
This is it, the final battle. Who will bask in the glory of the championship?
I'm going to start Amnesia. Oh, and by the way, what would you like to see me stream next time? Games I've thought about include Splatoon 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Mario Party 2. Use a body slam move here. Splatoon 2? Okay. I can certainly do Splatoon 2. I'm going to need to practice a little bit. It's been a little while. I was quite good at Splatoon 2. I was in the I was ranked top 7.5% through Nintendo ranks, but it has been a little while. I have basically when I didn't have Splatoon 2 anymore, I had to restart. I had to restart my game. I'm not top 7.5% ever since I had to restart it. But if I do Splatoon 2, my thought is I'm going to show you guys. First off, some of the weapons. I want to show some of the weapons. I want to show a little bit of what single player looks like. Because single player is very platformy. It is a third-person shooter game. And then we'll jump on for some multiplayer. Probably start the main mode, Turf War. Splatoon 2 is Nintendo's premier shooter game at this point. Very popular for multiplayer. In fact, the whole game is built... the whole game is basically built for online multiplayer. I'm going to actually use Rest here. So Arcanine, I guess, is getting swapped out, but this is not a bad place to rest because it was paralyzed. It was probably going to have some trouble doing damage during that turn. Rest, again, is a 2-turn move. It heals all health, puts you to sleep for exactly 2 turns. Splatoon 2 is a lot of fun to play, and I hope is a lot of fun to watch because it's a very colorful game. A lot of shooter games are dark, and while Splatoon 2, the setting is technically dark if you really think about it, it's not really a dark game. It's a very colorful, it's like paintball. It's basically like a paintball match, 4 versus 4. So, okay, this is Mew. This is the mystical Pokemon. Everyone wanted a Mew back then because people didn't really know how to get one. Mew is, as you can kind of see, very powerful. Fortunately, I paralyzed it because I'm going to have Snorlax rest again after taking that much damage.
The heated battle rages on.
I'm not even sure if Snorlax is going to survive this. Mew is just... Yeah, Mew is probably going to knock out Snorlax here, actually. Well, it survived, barely. I think that resting is going to be a problem at this point. They've already kind of broken through the wall. Mew is going to knock it out here. Another critical hit, which is another lucky hit for Mew. Okay, this is going to be a challenge. Executor and Starmie are both psychic types, as is Mew. I'm going to go with Starmie. Starmie does have healing, which hopefully will be helpful against Mew.
It's 2 Pokemon against 3 now. This battle is still up in the air.
Mew is paralyzed, but Mew has been hitting me anyway. So I've been kind of a little unlucky in that aspect, although I was lucky to land that paralysis. Oh, Mew has Thunder Wave as well, so yeah, this Mew is pretty, there's a pretty strong moveset there.
Sparks are flying in this heated match. What now?
Critical hit, almost takes Mew out. Oh, paralyzed, I actually can't launch a move here. Paralysis was just pretty strong back in the day. I don't think a similar strategy would work quite as well in newer games. But the best teams had the ability to paralyze in the old games. So they've got Cloyster back in, water and ice type. Basically one of the shell kind of Pokemon. Shellfish kind of Pokemon. Ice Beam isn't going to do much damage to Starmie. But Electric should do very well against a water type like Cloyster. I mean, I can use Thunder Wave on it, but I'm probably going to be able to knock it out anyway. Well, I think I will use Thunder Wave on it just because I think Starmie's going to need to recover. No, couldn't land it. I'm going to have to use... Hopefully I'll be able to use Recover here, because Cloyster is otherwise going to knock it out. There are multiple moves like Recover. Recover is a normal type move, but there are other moves like it for other types that heal that much damage. There aren't many Pokemon that can recover, though. So at this point, I might as well paralyze Cloyster just to, if I'm able to land a hit. Just to even it out, because the paralysis is really hurting Starmie right now. So right now I'm just trying to outlast Cloyster.
It's paralyzed on the spot. What's that? It didn't do much damage. Sparks are flying.
The paralysis has really slowed down this fight. Basically, being able to only attack 50% of the time, and not knowing when that is. Okay, Cloyster's finally paralyzed to a bigger degree. Let's see. So I have one Pokemon knocked out, and so does the other team. I'm going to use Thunderbolt again here. Hopefully it lands. Still trying to attack the water weakness. So one thing I like to do in these games when I'm at about half health and the other Pokemon is paralyzed is this is generally a good time to recover, even if I don't always need to recover HP. Okay, I missed, but that's what I generally try to do. Because it's easiest to heal when the other side can't really attack, even though you could also knock them out on the same turn. Okay, I did need to recover there. So at this point, it's become kind of a defensive struggle of a fight, which I know you haven't really seen as much in this run-through. But right now, I'm just trying to outlast the Cloyster, and then hopefully I'll be able to have a Starmie that's at relatively close to full health against the next Pokemon. So now I'm going to go for the KO. Hopefully I can land it. Nope, still paralyzed. So paralysis in any status effects generally is a good way to annoy your opponent. And also just outlast them if you're playing kind of a defensive game. I have to do recover again here. I've had defensive fights online with people on the 6th generation games. I think I had one battle like this last 20 minutes. It's kind of an aggravating way to play, but it's kind of like watching SEC football and having their games go like 14-10. It can still be a pretty effective way to win. That's true. We've played some games like that too. Still trying to get in a position where I have a good spot against the next Pokemon. At some point, it'd be fun to do an NCAA football stream. Been a little while since I played the NCAA football games. But those were some really fun games. Hopefully those new games are going to come out, you know, as they say, what, 2022 or whatever. Okay, now I'm kind of in a better spot. I at least have a little bit of health left. I'm gonna... Oh wait, oops, I accidentally pressed Thunder Wave on Arcanine. It's already paralyzed. So at some point, I think I want to do a video of the, kind of a short video on the Dynasty from NCAA Football 08, the Heracleopolis Judea one. I think that'd be really fun. Because I still have the memory card saved for that. Alright, I'm back at better health. I should be able to just knock it out here. If I can land a hit. And that is it. 8 battles. I guess I lost one. Had to redo one. But that is kind of the gist of Pokemon. This is Pokemon First Generation. We're talking blue, yellow, red. We're talking Pokemon Stadium, the very first one. And the original games have been remade into Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. If you wanted to try that out as a role-playing game, not as a... Well, I mean, there's strategy, of course, involved in it, too. This is the championship team. They're in the Hall of Fame. That's kind of how it goes in the Pokemon games. They get entered in the Hall of Fame as being awesome. Well, that's kind of Pokemon. I don't think I'm going to stream any further at this point, but I can certainly do a Splatoon 2 stream. Maybe I can do it next week. Probably at the time I did it the last 2 weekends and not this one, perhaps. But otherwise, that's it. I think I've taken plenty of your time today. Looks like the stream has gone an hour and 45 minutes at this point. But at least that gives you kind of a sense of how the original games worked and really how Pokemon works generally. The newer games, kind of like Mario Kart 64, I mean, the newer games just add some different mechanics. They change some things. That's kind of how it goes. The basic mechanics kind of stay the same in the series, and then the advanced mechanics totally change. Alright, well, you have a good rest of your weekend.